John Lusk here, Lusk Archery Adventures, serious testing and successful hunting. I'm excited to do some testing over a new thing for me. I've read about it a bunch, seen it on Archery Talk over the years, but have never really tested it until now, and that is the FOB. Okay, the FOB. Here's the package that they come in. FOB, it stands for Fletching Only Better. Okay, that's how they advertise it. It was designed by a guy named Paul Morris, who's an aerospace engineer, and he designed it based on just aerodynamics, thinking, hey, this is a new way to improve upon the old fletching that Native Americans and Native peoples all over the world have been using for years, and competition archery and everything else. He thought, well, let me just try something different. So he created the FOB, and then recently, 3 guys purchased the company from him exactly 1 year ago. They purchased the company from him, and I finally got around to testing these things. And I got to be honest, okay, when I first started reading about him and I first saw him, and you go FOB, and I'm like, really? You know, and kind of my little, my BS meter, okay, was kind of going off a little bit there. I'm like, all right, let me give him a whirl. But basically, let me introduce him to you, and then I'm going to put him through some testing. They're just like this, just this little piece of nylon. Okay, it's like a nylon shell, like nylon plastic there, and it just looks simple, and in some ways it is very simple, but in other ways it's very meticulously designed. It slides on just like this. Like, here's your shaft, here's a nock. You just stick a nock in there, and you put it on. And there, you've essentially fletched your arrow, that simply. No glue, no time, just boom, and it's done. And so it goes on really fast like that, and the way it's designed is a few things. First of all, the circular ring around like this is thicker in the front than it is in the back. It's kind of an airfoil design like that, so that aids in the stabilization and then the flight. And then these vanes, if you will, okay, the 3 little vanes, they're at a 4-degree offset. Okay, so kind of like fletching, they're at a 4-degree offset. And then there's some other little things about them that help out with the stabilization. The thought is behind them that they're just so fast to put on that you don't have to mess around taking all this time to fletch your arrows and so forth. They can be replaced really easily, and that they group really well is what they say. They group better than fletching, or as good or better than fletching. I'll get into that a little bit later. And then in a crosswind, look at the difference. That there is such a significant difference in the surface area. So in a crosswind, even something like these blazers, which are great vanes, I've been using these for years, look at the difference. So how much that arrow is going to be blown off course from the back end, okay, is going to be blown like that from the back end in the air due to wind is so much greater than the amount that this is going to be blown off course. So the combination of the offset vanes that allow for great spin with the airfoil design, the thicker ring in the front part, the thinner ring in the back, this ring going around to provide stabilization 360 degrees, whereas the vanes cannot provide it from 360 degrees. And when they're rotating a little bit, you know, I mean, obviously they're going fast. It's kind of 360 degrees, but it's not actually 360 degrees like that ring provides. So it's a really interesting design, and I thought, okay, well, let me just take it out to the range and see what's up. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to go out to the range. I'm going to shoot it at all kinds of different distances. I'm going to shoot it with fixed blade broadheads at long range as well. I'm going to compare it to my blazers. Now, I will note that the blazers and the vanes that I use are different than what most people use. I use them on a 4-degree helical setting. So they're put on with a 4-degree helical using an Arizona Easy Fletch. That gives you the fastest rotation that you can get with blazers. Sometimes people use them at an offset. If you get like the quick Fletch, you know, where you just heat them up and put them on like that, they're at an offset, like a 3-degree offset or 3.5-degree offset. Other times people just buy them from the factory straight. But when you put them on with the helical, they spin a lot better and you get better groups. So I'm testing them, I'm going to be testing them compared to kind of the best in that sense of the helical, 4-degree helical blazers. And so I'm going to see how they fly. Do they hit at the same point? Do they group as well? Maybe I'll be lucky and get some good crosswind to compare it in that, though you can see there's quite a difference in that. So let's put them through some of these tests, and then I'll come back and let you know some of my thoughts about it. Now I'm going to do some testing into this ballistic gel, and I'm going to be shooting a regular vaned arrow with the blazers into this ballistic gel, and I'm also going to be shooting an arrow with FOBs on it. And I want to see two things. One, I want to see how the penetration is affected by the fletching or by the FOB. And then two, I want to see how effectively the FOB bounces off the gel when it contacts it. So first, let's go ahead and shoot the FOB. Now I'll shoot the blazers. Okay, so you can see the FOB bounced right back there. It bounced right back to my feet. So it bounced back about, maybe that's 3 or 4 yards, 5 yards maybe. Okay, this is really interesting. So you can see the two arrows right here. The one with the vanes just landed on the other side. It went through the ballistic gel, landed, did not penetrate. It didn't stick at all into this last layer, or this layer of MDF. Whereas the bear shaft, that after the FOB popped off, continued to fly through and not only stuck into that layer of MDF, but actually penetrated all the way through it and poked out the other side and made a big dent in the next layer of MDF. So here it shows in this ballistic gel at least that the arrow tipped with the FOB penetrated better than the one with the vanes, because again, those vanes had to pull through the gel, whereas the bear shaft just slipped right through. So I have put these things through every test that I can think of. If you have some other ideas, maybe send them my way, put it in the comments section below. But man, I put them through every test I can think of. I've been pleasantly surprised, honestly kind of borderline shocked by how well they've done with each of the tests that I've given. They've passed every test that I have. And so just in conclusion, I want to give a summary of what I think are 7 pros and 7 cons to consider about the FOBs. First of all, the pros. The speed to replace your fletching. That's amazing. I mean, that I can do a dozen arrows in about less than a minute instead of about an hour. And that's really nice. And do it in the field and do it anywhere you are. You ever lose, you don't lose a vane, you just, boom, you got it right there. So that's really nice. The accuracy, they're every bit as accurate as a 4-degree helically attached blazer vane. That's pretty darn accurate. So I know that my vanes at a 4-degree helical are more accurate than straight vanes and even more accurate than offset vanes at long distances. So with these grouping with my blazer vanes with that helical, I know they're going to group better than would be straight fletching, or better than even offset fletching. So they group right there with the best, and I appreciate that. I like that. The next is how they are able to handle wind drift. It is really amazing. The surface area is so much less than a blazer vane or other vanes that they're much less affected in a heavy crosswind. And that's important if you're shooting out Western hunting or really long range. Another is the penetration. This surprised me, that shooting them both through the gel, you saw the test there a second ago, that the FOB bounced off as advertised. It landed about, I don't know, 10 feet away or something like that from where the impact was. And then the arrow, without the drag of the fletching, just zipped through and penetrated through a ½ inch of MDF, whereas the one with the blazer vane, it did zip through the gel, but then did not even stick at all, and didn't even make a dimple into the MDF. That's quite a bit difference in penetration. The lack of drag makes a difference. That was impressive. Another thing that I think is a strength is the durability. That I've shot these a couple hundred times now. I've hit FOB, I've hit them with the tips of other arrows a number of times. And, you get what you call a fobbin hood, where, one arrow can stick right through there. They've gotten a little dinged up at times, but I have yet to break one. So, and when they're dinged up, they still work fine. I understand as well that if you soak them in water inside like a Ziploc bag or something for a day or something like that, they get even a little more pliable, a little stronger if you're in a dry climate. That'll help them be even more durable, but they're very durable. I've been impressed with that. I consider that a strength. Another is, it's a little thing, but I like to be able to change the colors, and without having to strip everything down off of a previous arrow and put on another one. I mean, and you could just pop it off and put on pink, pop it off, put on orange, pop it off, put on black, or put on white. There's, you can just go through all the colors, and that's kind of cool. Another strength is to be able to use bare shafts. I was taught by one of my best buddies in archery. He taught me so much about archery, Shane Chunning, that he told me to always have a bare shaft in my target quiver so that I can test the tuning of my bow and test my own personal form. Nothing reveals imperfections in form and tuning like a bare shaft. So I always try to designate one arrow like that. But this is nice that you have all your arrows essentially can be bare shafts. You just pull that off, and then you've got bare shafts. You put the knock back in, and you can shoot a whole round of bare shafts, and then put them in and shoot a whole round of fletched ones. So that's a cool kind of plus as well. So those are like 7 advantages. In terms of disadvantages, some of the things are, first of all, you have to use a drop away rest. That's not going to work with a whisker biscuit. Sorry, it's not going to work with a prong rest. You got to have a drop away rest for it to clear like that. A second thing is, if your anchor point is way back, in the back of your head or something, then it could catch on your ear. That wouldn't feel nice. Or if you mash your arrow into your face, you might have a problem there. Or if you have like a really big beard or something like that, maybe that'd be a problem. For me, it's not a problem. The way I anchor, I just didn't even notice it. Even with the heavy mask on that I use for hunting in cold weather, it's just a non-issue. So that's kind of a personal thing. It may be a problem, may not. Another is like knock pinch, that with some short axle-to-axle bows, if people have a really long draw length and a short ATA bow, then there can be a pinch where it pinches the FOB like that. The string pinches it. If that's the case with you, well, then you wouldn't want to use them. It wouldn't be as accurate. They're coming up with a solution for that in the future, I heard. I don't know what it's going to be. But for now, if that's an issue for you, then these wouldn't work for you. Another disadvantage I've heard about is the sound. I compared them to the sound in flight. I compared them to my 4-degree helical blazers, which are louder than straight or offset blazers, and they're about the same. At least to my ear, I couldn't tell a difference. I even tried a decibel meter. I put it halfway down range to try to see if it could pick up a difference, and at least with my decibel meter, it wasn't sensitive enough to pick up a difference. It may be louder. I really couldn't tell. Honestly, I don't worry about arrow flight noise. Some people do. I get it. I don't. I worry about bow noise, and I worry about human noise at the shot. But arrow flight noise, I don't worry about. I mean, bugs are zipping around deer, birds fly by, leaves are falling. A sound of a like that, I don't think is an issue. I've never heard of it being an issue in a hunting situation. I've never experienced it. Another concern that's a con is finding your arrow. And some people have thought, well, if you use a lighted knock, which you can use, and if the lighted knock pops off, yeah, you'll find the lighted knock easy enough. but then it might be hard to find your arrow if your arrow goes all the way through. And the only way that would happen is if you get a pass-through. If the arrow stays in the animal, well, you're going to see it running off with the lighted knock as normal. But if it goes all the way through, the lighted knock is going to pop off, then your arrow is somewhere in the ground and you may not be able to find it because you don't have a lighted knock. That's only an issue if you use lighted knocks. But then to remedy that, and actually what I do with all of my hunting arrows anyway, is I use a reflective wrap. And I find that is just as effective as a lighted knock at finding your arrow. Because you shine a light on it and bam, I mean, it lights up like a Christmas tree. So a reflective wrap it's really good. I like to use a lighted knock for videoing, but a reflective wrap really helps me find that arrow. So kind of a con, kind of not a con. And then the weight is the other thing that I've heard people be concerned about. When you put it on, it ends up being about, for me, it's about 10 grains heavier, maybe 8, depends on how much glue you use, but 8 to 10 grains heavier than blazers. So that's pretty minimal in my mind. It's kind of the difference between using a lighted knock or not, which doesn't really affect, in my bow, accuracy unless I'm out well past 60 yards. And then I sight in my bow for lighted knocks, and this hits right where my lighted knocks hit. So it's kind of a non-issue for me. So those are the concerns. Oh, one other concern that people have expressed at times is the cost. I wondered about that too. So where do they fit in cost-wise? I think they're about like $2.25 each. You get a 12-pack for $29 or something like that. So they're more expensive than just getting vanes and attaching them yourself. They're less expensive than paying a shop to attach your vanes, nothing against the shops. They're less expensive than buying the shrink wrap vanes and putting them on, so they're less expensive than those. So it's, they just fall into the middle like that. Actually, they gave me a bunch of these to test, and they even gave me a code. So if you go to their website and you order some, and you punch in the code LUSK10, L-U-S-K, my last name, LUSK10, then you get 10% off. So hey, that's a deal. If you want to use it, use it. So I have really liked these, okay? They passed every test I can think of. I'm ready to take them into the field. I'm going to try them on an elk hunt later this fall. I'm going to try them on a lot of deer hunting here in Iowa, and I'll know better how they perform. But up to this point, man, they're real, okay? Like, ESPN says, buy or sell? Buy. Real deal or fad flop? Real deal. Yay or nay? Yay. Okay, they passed all those tests in my book. Now they're ready for the field and ready to be tested in a hunting situation. More of that to come. Thanks for watching.